Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
This is Andrea Johnson from ICM Partners, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
This is episode 163 of the Promoter 101 podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
163 coming at you. We're going to continue on with our New York sessions. We've got AEG Presents, SVP of Global Touring on the podcast, Rich Schaefer, coming up later for you.
Never fear, because K-March is here. That's right, CAA's Kristine Marshall turns the tables on us.
Can't wait for that, Dan. Episode 163 of Promoter 101 starts right now.
Hi, I'm Ben Chalice, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Have you missed any of the past Promoter 101 episodes? Well, have we got a deal for you? For the price of absolutely nothing, you can go online and listen to them all for free. That's right, free! How about that? Episode 96 is our reissue of the week. Tell them about it, brother!
Episode 196 was quite the dish indeed, Dan. We had Summerfest's bookers, Vic Thomas, Bob Babbage, and Scott Steele on the podcast, sitting down to talk about one of the biggest festivals in the middle of the Midwest.
Plus, primary talents Martin Hopewell shares the history of ILMC. Fascinating for you industry conference nerds.
Like you, Dan.
Like myself.
And we had a war story from CAA's Brian Hill.
CAA just kind of in the theme of the podcast in the first couple minutes here today, Luke.
Talking a lot about it. CAA has gotten several impressions right here. They can come find us and pay us our 10%, Dan.
I thought it was 15 for managers.
Well, you can't make more than 10 as an agent. Do you think we would be a 1% client at CAA, Dan? I think we would.
Well, I'm going to stop right there. Hey, if you've got a free moment and you want to drop us a review, we sure wouldn't mind. You could subscribe. It wouldn't hurt us.
Tell your friends.
And we wouldn't be mad at you if you told a friend to too. That's right, Luke.
This is Dan Weiner from Paradigm on Promoter 101.
News of the week.
So what's news out there, Luke? What's news?
It's time for news of the week. Spotify wants its money back. That's right. Spotify has reviewed some of the ramifications of the new rulings from the Copyright Rate Board, and they found out that many music publishers were actually overpaid. Now they're asking for that money back. As if tensions hadn't run high enough between publishers and songwriters and Spotify, there's this. This, of course, follows the appeal that Spotify made to the Copyright Rate Board for increases in payments to songwriters and publishers back in March. One insider anonymously offered a quote to Music Business News saying Spotify is clawing back millions of dollars from publishers in the U.S. based on the new CRB rates that favor the DSPs, while appealing the wider CRB decision. This puts the music publishers in a negative position, and it's unbelievable. Spotify isn't expecting publishers to hand over the money that is owed right away. Instead, they said the negative balance will be treated as an advance by Spotify, which will be recouped from its 2019 royalty payments to publishers and, by association, their songwriters. Not surprisingly, David Israelite, who's the CEO of the National Music Publishers Association, was pretty disgusted. He had this to say: "I find it so hypocritical for a digital service that is appealing the CRB decision to then take advantage of the parts of the decision that benefit it. I guess we shouldn't be surprised." More on this to come, we're sure. On a positive note, in the streaming world, Apple Music has surpassed 60 million paying subscribers globally. This from Eddie Q, the SVP of Services for Apple, who confirmed that the platform surpassed the figure to the French media on this Thursday. Apple also confirmed that Beats One, Apple Music's in-house radio station, now has tens of millions of listeners. This comes 2 months after Spotify announced that it finished its Q1 this year with 100 million paying subscribers worldwide. Apple close now on its tail. The iOS 13 version of Apple Music includes a time sync lyrics feature, which acts like a personal karaoke function, and Eddie Q added that Apple employees had inputted these lyrics themselves rather than using a third-party company like Genius. Another subtle shot at Spotify. Finally, a sad note as we say goodbye to a concert legend in Michael Belkin. A loss in the concerts world as Michael Belkin, the founder of Belkin Productions, brothers to co-founder Jules, And father to Michael Belkin Jr. died on Wednesday due to complications from Alzheimer's disease. The Belkins were synonymous with Cleveland and rock and roll. They launched their concert business from their father's clothing store and built it into a company that booked the World Series of Rock concerts at the Municipal Stadium in Cleveland and brought world-class rock acts to the city by the lake. The brothers were an integral part of landing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland before they sold their company to SFX in 2001. The music business is for sure a better place having had the Belkins in it, and the Promoter 101 family extends our thoughts to the Belkins. Michael Belkin, gone at 83. Rest in peace. That'll do it for News of the Week.
Hi, this is Jason Kupperman from Paradigm, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
It's time to turn the tables. It's time to turn the tables.
In our first interview this week, we're joined by Creative Artists Agency, that's CA, and that's the 15th time we've said that. CA's Kristine Marshall, a.k.a. K-Marsh. She's here to turn the tables on Steiny.
Time to turn the tables after I've gotten to ask you all the questions on my mind. You get to turn the tables on me for a minute.
Yeah. I hope nobody's asked you this before, but I think I've mentioned before that a lot of music industry folks have some history being like band or choir nerds or performers back in the day. And for one reason or another, they decided to put their on-stage talents to the side in favor of being titans of industry. So my question is, did you come into the business with any sort of music background before that as a performer or anything on stage?
I have talked about being a musician in the past, and I was a drummer, and I played in high school bands, and, there weren't a lot of all-age clubs, so I'd rent out theaters and get bigger bands to headline to protect my investment, and we'd open for the bigger bands, and soon more bands wanted me to promote their shows, and I didn't want to play that much because I didn't want to kill my band's draw in the market, so I would just do shows without us, and then started working with nationals, so that's kind of how I got to be a promoter in the early days. Well, I was still a high school student, but no one's actually asked me the choir thing, and as embarrassing as this is going to be, I'm going to answer that. When I was in high school, my sister was a couple of years ahead of me, and she was in choir, and she told me it was a great way to pad your GPA, particularly if you weren't a star student, which I wasn't.
What?
Yeah, go figure, right? So I had taken male vocal choir my freshman year based on my sister's suggestion, as did my couple of closest male friends that were like, okay, this is a great idea. All of our older sisters had done this, and we're like, oh, okay, let's do this. We'll all do it together. And we realized as you got older, there were advanced choirs you could get into. So you could stay in the male choir, and you could get into the advanced choir where there was girls too, which we really liked. So we could have 2 classes a day that would pad our GPAs. So we would do the male choir, which was the Plainsmen, and we would do Sicilians, which was the co-ed advanced choir. And, it was a great GPA padder, and they put the choir classes in the afternoon so we could go to lunch, get baked, come back and sing. And it was great. We were hanging out with girls for an hour and we were singing. It was like, it seemed ridiculous when we sounded up and we're like, it seems a little fruity. But by the time we were like into it for like 2-3 years, we're like, nobody wanted to drop choir because it was like, you knew the girls, it was a great hang. And then at the end of the year, you got to take a trip somewhere. I was like, I think we went to Wisconsin and Chicago one year.
So you were competing?
We weren't competing. We were just traveling and performing with other local choirs and then staying with them. It was just kind of like weekend in Whitefish Bay and Milwaukee and Chicago. It's like we were on tour, and it was the coolest thing through choir.
Yeah.
So it was like, I never would have thought, but padded my GPA good enough to get me into college.
There you
go. I gave up the choir right about then, but did a musical, tried the thing, but wanted to be on stage just like everybody else. But clearly it's a whole lot easier to make it on the backstage side of the business than it is because everybody's fighting for the front side. But I had something going on as a drummer. I wasn't great in choir, but I could hold my own as a drummer on stage. I thought I had a real shot, but quickly realized that most musicians don't make a decent living playing. Most musicians don't get past playing to 500 people.
Right.
And usually not outside their home market. So you can't really make a living doing that. So it takes a whole lot of luck, a really good team, and a really good band. And, usually there's 1 or 2 guys in the group that don't get along, and you got to manage personalities, as you know, in the industry.
Right.
A lot of things go wrong, and it's really hard to make sure that a lot of things go right. It's scary.
So you never sang backup in your band or anything like that? You didn't bring those vocal skills?
No, it was never my thing. I was into Tommy Lee. I was a Motley Crue fan, so I was a very showy drummer.
Nice.
Hey, we'll have a full interview with the one and only K-Marsh this Monday right here on Promoter. Well, you know the rest.
If you want to come on and turn the tables on Steiny or I, or you want to play 3 questions, shoot us an email. You got to let us know. Hit us at Steiny@promoter101.net with your request. And hey, we are counting down. There's not too many times left. So if you've got something burning that you want to ask, get it in soon.
If you got something burning, you should go to a doctor, not call us. That's absolutely 101 of anything medical.
Hey, it's Jonathan Shank from Red Light Management on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 81.
Carl Leighton Pope. My business is great, and it's quite small, my business. So I never wanted, everybody offered me jobs and wanted to buy my company. I wasn't interested in any of that. I was interested more in just being me and doing what I wanted. Toby came to work for me. Jake did some tour management for me. So I managed a band called Matt Bianco, who were a big act on Warner Brothers in Europe. I had my Saga stuff that I'd done. So we'd made a lot of money. We were in good shape.
Let's take a second because you mentioned Toby and you mentioned Jake. So your offspring with themselves is huge in the industry. Andrew is a big agent. Jake is at CAA. Toby is AEG here. You have created your own spawn of the industry. It's amazing.
It's a dynasty.
It really kind of is.
Well,
your daughter works for you too as well, right?
She did. Oh, well, she works. She runs my property company. That's a separate issue.
But she was in the business for a while.
She was my assistant for a while. And I think it comes from more or less being born into the business. I was in the business from 60s into 70s. And as my kids got older, they were at all the festivals. I remember filling their ears with cotton wool and carrying them around Reading Festival. And they were always around. And when they went to university, I got them a job as a local promoter. I think the first gig they did was Oasis at some college in Wales, working for Tim Parsons. And so they were always in the business. I remember, I was the guy who invented the Chippendales in 1991. Me and an American guy.
And you still tour that, right?
My son Andrew does, yeah. I do about 150 shows a year still. Gave it to my son as a millennium gift.
Hell of a gift.
Yeah, it's not bad. One time in the 90s, we had 4. I had 1 in the West End for a year, 1 touring UK and 2 touring Europe. It was huge. But, we had a merchandiser, had a heart attack and died on the road in Berlin. And I put Toby on a plane. And Toby flew out and sold merch on a Chippendale tour and humped gear. And, they all did all the stuff that you're supposed to do. The best part about it was we were in Cologne. I think they were carrying too much cash. And so I had gone to Cologne to collect a load of money off the tour manager. And Toby walked out the building. They'd done the load out. And Toby was just going to get on the bus. And my wife, Pamela, said, "Get him a hotel room. What's the matter with you? He's your son." And I said, "You can't do that. He's on the road with the guys. Get him a hotel room, But he was great. He did everything they wanted, sold the merch, he humped gear. Jake was tour managing all over the place, and everybody did it. Andrew took a band to America. And to be honest with you, I'm the son of a coal miner. So I'm first generation music business. The life it's given me and the life I've led, why would I not want my children to come in and have the same life that I had? It would be criminal.
But you've always embraced them knowing the business. I mean, Toby has told stories about coming to ILMC as a small boy with you.
Yeah.
Literally grew up not close to it. He grew up in it.
Well, he not only grew up in the business, but all of his uncles, Uncle Andre Bashir, Uncle Marek, Uncle Herman, Uncle Leon, Uncle Thomas Johansson. We used to go to their houses. We'd be on holiday in Europe, go around to Andre's house. So when Toby went to Live Nation, came to me first and was my assistant a couple of years, and then he got headhunted and went to Live Nation with my blessing. Of course, all the big, they all knew him. And Bruce Allen loved him, Dennis Desmond, everybody knew Toby and Jake, because they'd been there, all the time. When I used to do my 2-hour Friday, which was the opening for the ILMC, I used to do a 2-hour panel on my own. I hated people on the stage with me. I used to just do it on my own, start a row. Me and Pino would start rowing, and everybody, we just, Chuggy and me, we just have such a fight. Harvey Goldsmith and I had the best fights.
2 hours?
Yeah, on my own, yeah. Just going through stuff and getting people to argue, and getting people to get angry.
Just, you instigated.
Oh, yeah, no, it was terrible. You asked Martin Hobel, he'll tell you. It was called The Talking Shop, but it was really only me. And I used to do some terrible stuff. He said, we've got to have the 2 guys who do tax. He said, withholding tax, and always a Dutch guy. There's a Dutch guy and a German guy. And he said, they've got to come up on the stage during your talking shop. They've got to do something for 5 minutes about tax. And I went, really? He said, yeah. So I introduced them both, and they came up on stage. They started talking about withholding, and I had got the hotel to slide this pillow under my desk. So I got the pillow out and put it on my desk.
Put to bed.
I fell asleep. It was brilliant. And then about 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, I used to think about it, right? And I'd have topics. I knew what I was talking about. I can't write a speech. I just do it like I'm doing it with you right now. So Martin said, you've got to talk about secondary ticketing. I said, I haven't really, it's nothing, mine. Why don't you give me, it's sort of like, I'm going on. It's like half an hour before I went on. I said, you could have given me a bit more notice. He said, well, just slide it in as something that we've all got to be aware of, and we're going to talk about it in depth, all that kind. Just give it a bit of a, So, again, I said, we're going through stuff, and I said, oh, by the way, I said, something that the whole conference, we've got to start taking the future seriously. And one of the things that's coming right around the corner at us is secondary ticketing. And I look like that. It's a true story. I look like that. And I could see Harvey Goldsmith. He was standing up, and I could see blood running through his eyes. And you could see, he grabbed the microphone off this poor microphone girl. I think he took her arm off. He went, secondary ticketing, what are you, crazy? And he came out jumped up and and I thought, oh, perfect, Harvey. I said, actually, be honest with you, I'm a great believer in it. I think it's the future for the business.
Just because you want to wind him up?
Harvey went mental. He was so angry. He was screaming. And, we all know where secondary ticketing went.
Mike Luba, Madison S. presents Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Hey, cats and kittens, I hope you're ready, because it's time for Tweets of the Week. And I want to start here. I want to do it. I want to start with this one. Beware of any venue with a chain link fence inside the showroom.
This one was kind of inspired by the Blues Brothers movies, to be honest with you. But I have noticed a handful of venues that actually do have fencing on the inside, and it scares the living shit out of me.
How about this? Hello, email of confirmation of a show 3 weeks out from an offer sent 3 months ago and not discussed since.
Wonder if the venue is even still available at this point. I mean, we were like 8th hold when the offer went in. Well, we'll check.
By the time you'll clear it, you've got about 8 days to the show, Dan. So good luck with that one.
No, just came back. Show is confirmed and on sale and sold out for another artist. Sorry.
No dice. We are aware you take all the risk and work very hard for us, but we need a tad more money in this. Quoted by seemingly everyone, #Promoter101.
Fuck my life.
Hey, that is a perfect ending to Tweets of the Week. Make sure you keep up with Dan on Twitter. He is @TheJew.
Hi, it's Marci Allen, president of Mac Presents, and honored to be on Promoter 101.
Coming up next in our featured interview on this, the 163rd episode of Promoter 101, we are continuing the New York sessions. AEG presents SVP of Global Touring, Rich Schaefer.
This is my second bite at the apple. Rich Schaefer is joining me now as of AEG Presents Touring. When we originally recorded our interview, which has never aired, because by the time we were about to put it up, within the couple weeks span of recording it, you had changed gigs from being a manager to going to work for AEG.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for having me back. That was a funny time because I think I knew a bit about AEG at that point. Hadn't accepted a job or anything, but I was talking to Gary Gersh about it and Jay and a lot of people at AEG, and I wasn't sure, but I wanted to do your podcast because I am a fan of your podcast. I listen to it all the time. I love hearing my friends.
Oh, so you knew already when you did the interview that there might be something coming?
Yeah, I knew that it was a conversation, but we hadn't even gone to like an offer yet. We hadn't gone to anything. It was a conversation.
Randomly having conversations with people. But
yeah, I was flattered to be approached. I think it's always a nice thing when someone wants you to join their team. And, Gary and I go back a long time from when we worked together at the artist organization. It was an interesting conversation to have, but I said in that interview, I remember, and I'll say it today, Loyalty Management, which is the company that I started with my friend Rich Cohen and left, is and continues to be a great company with great artists, with great people. It's still basically intact at this point. They're managing amazing artists. And so, it was tough to leave my friend Rich. My girlfriend works there, So there was a lot of things that were tough to leave, but the opportunity to join AEG and help build and run, global touring with Gary was really exciting to me.
You give up a successful management career. You had real artists.
Yeah.
Fucking Chromeo was killing it when you switched gigs.
Well, I still manage Chromeo.
Oh, you're doing both?
Yeah, I still co-manage Chromeo with Adam Harrison. I was basically allowed to keep one management client, because I wasn't ready to fully give up. I love management. I mean, I'll always love management. I think managing 15 clients or whatever we had at the time.
But that's the only artist you manage?
That's the only one, yeah.
Okay.
And there's, Rich Holtzman, who works at AEG and runs our marketing. He manages Portugal the Man still. And Gary still manages Tears for Fears. So, there's a few of us that each have one management client that are completely outside of AEG and have nothing to do with any management, ventures that AEG makes.
So can you make a tour offer to Chromeo as the promoter?
I can, yeah. And in fact, there have been discussions, but it's not one that I would personally make. I would, someone on our team would make it, just like we are with, I'm sure we'll talk to Portugal the Man when they have a record come out. And Rick Mueller a couple of years ago did a really successful Tears for Fears Hall & Oates tour that Gary was involved in.
Gary Gersh.
Yeah. So we try to keep the conflicts relatively clean.
Relatively.
It's never.
It's the music business, whatever.
If you don't have a conflict in the music business, what are you doing?
Okay, so let's do a little history and then we'll go backwards, because management days, you've worked with some pretty amazing talent early on. I mean, names like Mellencamp and Jessica Simpson, Ricky Martin, CKY, Gavin McGraw, fucking John Legend, Chris Cornell, Soundgarden, Lenny Kravitz, Animal Collect, Brian Fallon. Dude, some fucking great names and some cool punk rock shit. Gaslight Anthem.
Yeah. I've been really lucky. I've been really fortunate to work with great artists and really great people. My first job, I got hired by Randy Hoffman, who at the time managed John Mellencamp and Jessica Simpson and Julio Iglesias and Talia, right? And Randy had managed Mariah in her prime and just is an incredible guy and still manages John Mellencamp to this day. I had lunch with him the other day. He's just a legend in the business and one of my first true mentors, is especially to learn the management game. And then to go from him to working with Gary Gersh at the artist organization and our incredible team there, we started managing Chris in 2009. And then, one of the things that we did was try to talk to him about getting Soundgarden back together as part of his legacy as a songwriter and as an artist, right? And so Soundgarden got back together in 2010. I worked with them until a year ago, basically. I was at one of their last shows before, Chris unfortunately passed away, and was still involved, with a team of people that was led by Brent Smith to put on the Chris Cornell tribute in January at the Forum, which was, one of the most special nights of music I've ever been to, So I work hard, but I find myself to be incredibly lucky to be around such amazing talent and such amazing people.
So you switch from artist management to being a promoter. Now, historically, taking the cap off and going from protecting the artist to protecting the deal, which is a check and balance of the business. Somebody's guarding the wallet, somebody's guarding the artistic integrity of the show. And that's the check and balance of it all. Was it hard to go from being the keeper of the art to the keeper of the wallet? Because it really is a trick.
It's been an interesting transition for me to do that because I, for so long, 18 years, have always thought, as you said, on behalf of the artist and have fought for artists my whole career. And I believe that as a promoter, we can still do that, right? I believe that, there's enough for everybody, right? I think, artists should absolutely be paid well for what they do, especially on the live side. And I think, promoters, the right ones and the good ones, should be paid for their skill. I don't think it's as simple as a promoter can just put a show on sale and, hey, look, we sold it out and I'm a genius. Anyone can do that. Anyone can buy a show, put it on sale and hope it sells out. But it's really, what are you doing to get it there? And that's what we're building within Global Touring is we have Rich Holtzman, who was a manager and is a manager, running marketing, because we look at it and say, what would we want? What would our old selves want from a promoter, right? We don't just want, $35 times 5,000, here's your guarantee. We want, what can you bring to the table that our competitors can't or that didn't exist before? Because we all know the label world is what the label world is. And so anytime you can get extra support from somebody, right, and have another team member, we welcome it. And so I think we've had a lot of projects and there are managers and management companies that have bought into this idea of us being an extension of their team. And that whether that involves us on the marketing side, us on the digital marketing side, us on the production side, however we can help, we're doing it. So I think, I have to protect the deal and I have to make, we obviously have numbers that we all need to hit, but I think we're more artist friendly than ever at this point.
Now, I don't think that anyone can do this. I think that's an exaggeration. Anybody that's playing the level.
I don't mean that. I just mean that when we're seeing it with festivals that just pop up out of nowhere, right? People, if someone has money, right, they can buy a show.
Sure.
That doesn't mean they're going to do a good job. So all I'm saying is anyone can do it. If
anybody can throw money at it.
Anybody can throw money at something. That's all I meant. I'm not saying.
I'll concede that point.
Yeah.
I'm just saying selling out a show, buying a show correctly, making money, doing what we do.
That's a skill. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying anyone can say, oh, I got $100,000 and, you know, it's way more than you should be paid for this 1,500 cap room, but I'm a promoter. Like, anyone can do that. If you have the money.
I will absolutely concede that anybody can get a giant act to play their wedding.
I'm not insulting promoters all over the country, I promise.
Okay, so you've jumped from the world of being a manager to being a promoter. So now that you're in this promoter circle, and you're not just trying to buy one market, you're trying to buy the whole tour, and globally in most cases, without any history as a promoter, and now you're trying to ask for the entire tour, that's going to be a giant step to go to. I mean, you know how to talk manager because you're a manager, and you probably know best what people are looking for because you come from that world. But was that a little bit of a trick to figure out what the pitch is and how that works, and even building offers? I mean, you look at offers, but had you had to build offers before?
I never had to build an offer. And
I know you got the territorials to help on each market, but like, you have to be able to structure the deal. That's your job.
Yeah. I mean, as a manager, I was always super focused on touring. You know, I think if you asked people about me and management, my strength was always the road and the live side. And so I was very hands-on with agents, very hands-on with promoters, very hands-on with festival buyers, and at the same time with all the elements of production, trucking, buses, all that. Like, that was my area.
I think it was more like, he won't leave me the fuck alone. But yeah.
I was known for that too. But I've always known deals, and I've studied deals, and I've seen almost every kind of deal, you know.
Right. Now you've had a year and change to like get your feet wet, which is why we waited to do this, because we wanted you to be in the job so you could
building
talk.
The offer thing is something that I do with unbelievable help from an incredible amount of people. You know, Cody Lazier, Donna D in New York, Jenny Heifetz, Rob Owens in LA, like, you know, all of our team that if we decide we're targeting the tour, we believe in team. And so if I have a relationship with a manager or an agent and say, hey, this is out, let's go make a pitch, I'll bring 3 people in, right? We'll have different people that operate the tour. You know, like, I'm not doing it on my own. We don't want anybody doing it on their own at this point, because we you know, as we said, we're going global, and it's just too big of a world to try to do it on your own. I always felt that way as a manager too. I felt, you know, a lot of managers who try to do it all by themselves, it never hurts to have help, right? Whether it's just working on a grid or working on a model, help getting holds, you know, like, it's to have one person do it. It's just, I don't think
sounds
it's
exhausting. Do you need a hug?
I'm good. I feel good. But no, we have great teams. And so I've learned a ton from our entire team, and everyone's been really patient with me because, they were like, who's this manager guy that is coming in and helping build this group when he has never been a promoter? And it's like, well, I've worked with every promoter all over the globe. I know a little bit, you know, and now I've learned the nuances of it, and I feel great.
What are the tours that you're in the middle of that are happening, that you already know you have?
I mean, we're finishing up a 1975 run where we split the dates with Live Nation. I think we had like 8 or 12 dates. The big tour that I'm working on and spend a lot of time on is, you know, I bought this Hugh Jackman tour late last year.
It's crushing, right?
And yeah, it's, you know.
I saw the videos of the UK dates that Toby posted.
We're partners with Paul Dainty in Europe and in the US, but, you know, he's promoting all of Australia by himself. It's about 91 shows total. I think last time Brent and I talked, it was like $100 million gross. And, you know, it's an amazing story, an amazing tour, and one of the nicest, most talented human beings I've ever met or been around. Hugh Jackman and his team is incredible. Yeah, Brent Smith's the agent. Michelle Bernstein works super closely on the tour. He doesn't have a manager. He has a, you know, incredible publicist who does a ton named Michelle Schweitzer. You know, it's just a great team. And so, yeah, Toby...
Such an actor thing. He doesn't have a manager, but he's got a really amazing publicist.
Big team, yeah. Toby's promoting the UK and Europe, which will end in early June with 602s. And then we start here in June, 20-something arenas.
Okay, let's go back.
3 MSGs.
602s.
602s. And we could have done 9, I think. We just didn't have the days. You know, he had to go home for something. So we had to cut it. You know, we started the US 3 weeks later, and 3 MSGs, including a matinee. So Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, at the end of June.
He'll do 2 in a day.
Oh, yeah. He's doing that in Birmingham, Manchester, Dublin.
You're turning arenas, including MSG. I can't wait to see the labor bill on that show.
Same. We're doing 2 Salt Lake City. I mean, you know, the tour is doing incredible, and so much so that
Wait, did you just say you're doing 2 Salt Lake Cities?
See, that's what I think. I was on the phone with Brent one day. He's like, man, I can't believe we're doing 602s. I'm like, fuck 602s. We sold out 2 Salt Lakes on the on sale. Like, that to me is amazing. And those shows will be crazy. You know how the Salt Lake City people get down. So yeah, we announced like 12 more shows for October.
I wish we had video right now to show my face in awe of this, right? Like,
that's what I think too. Salt Lake City.
Are you going to add more Salt Lakes? Are you going to do another run?
We thought about it, actually. We added 10 more shows in October.
We're rolling a 3rd Salt Lake.
We probably could have done a matinee. Yeah. It's been really exciting. It's an amazing tour because we kind of all of us, everyone involved created out of nothing. Like, it didn't exist. He had toured Australia a few years ago and did arenas, but
right. I mean, it was an unknown. He was a movie star, TV star,
but he's not Mr. Australia, right? But so we had teams of people. My local buyers, a lot of them were like, "Hey, he should play this theater and he should play this 5,000 cap." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think that's what they want. I don't know if that's what it is." And yeah, the movie and the soundtrack, which truthfully, I'm not even going to say the name of the movie because I don't know who can sue me at this point. But the soundtrack for this movie was so big, right? Especially in the UK, especially in all over that we knew that there was a massive audience for it. And I went to the first couple shows in Glasgow with Toby, and it's a lot of kids. It's families because that movie resonated with kids. But it's also he was in Les Mis. He was on Broadway for years in The Boy from Oz. Which is about Peter Allen. I mean, he's so well known and so diverse. And of course, he's Wolverine, and people and he incorporates that into the show somehow. But he's just so likable and personable that people want him to win.
It's just so weird that the Chromeo guy is talking to me about a Hugh Jackman too.
Yeah, tell me about it. That's what they think too.
All right, so you do business globally, and as a manager, you did anyway. But working in different parts of the world, language barriers, dollars, dealing with different cultures, it's got to be a thing when you're thinking about running an act internationally into different parts of the world. How that's going to play. Is it still the Wild West there? Does it work? Is my crew going to be safe? I mean, these have got to be questions that you literally have to think about. When you're booking London, you're not worried about, but maybe when you're booking some of the different parts of the world now, there are wars going on.
It's so funny you say that. So Chromeo played in Mexico City, right? And they did great and it was amazing. But the night before they were in Guadalajara. And so I get a text from my tour manager on a new phone number. And I was like, what is happening? He's like, oh, my phone got stolen because a prostitute got in the runner van and basically grabbed my phone right after the show. And I was like, wait, what? I thought he was kidding.
Why was a prostitute in the van?
Exactly. Wild West. But the world is different. And I think that's part of the nuance here is you can't just handle Glasgow like you would New York and London, even London and New York different. Sydney and New York are different.
I mean, I know you guys have got boots on the ground.
Yeah, especially in Australia now. We did a deal with Frontier and who has a joint venture with Chug. And so we have, I think the best people in Australia, that are and we're on calls with them and we have an international call every week. And hey, what do you guys think? What is this worth? We're talking about things now that emailing with Toby this morning about something that has never been an act that's never really been over there. And he's like getting the temperature from Europe for us, because he's got so much experience. And again, it's not like I don't want it to ever be that I'm the guy that has to go talk first to Amsterdam or Germany about what an act's worth because Toby knows and Toby's done it. And so if I can tap into Toby and then get involved with the local, it just makes us stronger. And so we just believe that there's, strength in numbers and having the smartest people in the room is always going to, be better than not.
Let's talk about your early days because we kind of just jumped right into the meat of touring. But let's go back. How'd you find your way into the biz?
There are two things that I loved as a kid and continue to love now, which are sports and music, right? And I never played music, but I played sports. And still to this day, that's true. But I was a Fish fan. In 1992 or 3, I got deep into it and Dead and Dave Matthews Band at the time and, the whole jam band world. And I would drive around the country and see Fish, right? With still to this day, one of my best friends, Johnny Beach, who we met, 25 years ago. We would drive around the country and go see Fish with, another friend from high school. And so I just started to meet people. Johnny and I grew up about 35 minutes from each other. So we would go to the city and be at Irving Plaza or be at Wetlands. And we would just meet people. Johnny met John Moore, who, he later interned for at Mammoth Records.
Jomo.
Now, he works for at Barrier Presents. And, Jomo was an early friend and an early mentor. And, we just started to meet people, Pete Shapiro and Jake Sniferowski and Chris Zahn, all these New York guys that were around, Jeff Webster. And so as we were doing that, as we went to college, I went to college upstate New York. And, I met a guy who was an alumnus who was in my same fraternity. And he was like, oh, I do the taxes or the business management for the two guys who work at labels. You should meet them. And so after a failed .com thing that I worked at for a little bit, I got a job as the assistant to the head of marketing and head of creative at London Sire Records, which at the time was run by Peter Kupke. And I worked for Alison Pember and Don Pearson. Was just a young, eager kid. I think I made like $18,000 a year. I don't even know how it was legal. I don't even know what I did. I loved it. And I loved being in music. I got a bump to head was the only one, but manager of artist development, right? Which, we at the time were launching this girl group called Eden's Crush, which was a CW show called Pop Stars. And they created this girl group called Eden's Crush.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so I became their de facto day-to-day manager, so to speak. The girls would call me about everything, flights, this, everything. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I soon realized that being on the label side, I wasn't as close to the process and to the artist and to the, fighting for the rights of the artist as I wanted to be. And I got a call from a guy named Larry Braverman, who I had interned for when I was in college. And he was like, hey, do you want to come do day-to-day for John Mellencamp and Jessica Simpson? And I was like, sure. So I went and met Randy Hoffman a few times, and he finally hired me. I started there in August of 2001, and I was there for 7 years. At which point, it was a smaller company. We were managing John Mellencamp and a handful of other things. And I got introduced to Gary Gersh by a mutual friend. He said, hey, you should meet Gary. Gary needs to expand into New York, and he's building something. And I said, hey, listen, I'll go meet the guy that signed Nirvana all day, every day. Tell me where to go, And so Gary and I had breakfast at Nate and Al's, and he's great. Gary's become a dear friend of mine. And he said, look, I want to start something. I want you to run touring, and I'm about to sign John Legend. And he was. A few months later, we started managing John Legend. And so in May of 2008, I started. We were managing John Legend, Counting Crows, Modest Yahoo, a handful of other things. And, we started building, and we brought in Rich Holtzman, who managed Portugal. We brought in Kevin Coker, who managed Chromeo at the time. We brought in Don Van Cleve. We brought in all these people, and we built a really great company. We signed Animal Collective. We signed, different things.
How'd you guys fuck it all up?
How'd we fuck it up? Maybe we had too many clients. I think
because you guys were on top for a while.
We were doing great. We had a great run. We had a lot of really strong clients and even better people. And I think we lost, John Legend left in, I think, 2010. That was like Randy Hoffman and I, we managed Jessica Simpson right up until, I think we were co-managers with her dad, and we did it right up until the wedding. Nah, that wedding will never work. Fuck. Oops. Just got bigger after that. Tuna fish or something.
God bless reality TV.
Yeah.
I don't think there was really a reality explosion until that point, so you really couldn't see what was coming.
No, we had no idea.
What had happened with those moments, because there was no parallel.
Well, no, the only thing there was back then was like O-Town and Even Eden's Crush, which was a CW show. It still wasn't
It was just a different
as far-reaching
world.
as the Kardashians or as, any American Idol, even that came a few years later. But looking back, I don't really know what happened. I think, Gary and I was on the East Coast, Gary was on the West Coast. I had been named president of the company. I think we were all, some of us had, one vision, others had another vision. And I think we started just signing a bunch of things. It became factioned, and that's never really a good way to run a company. And at the same time, I think Gary, similar to how I felt last year, I think Gary was just ready to stop being a full-time manager. He still manages Tears for Fears now, but I think, the idea of him running his own, running the company, and I just don't think he wanted to do it anymore, and being a manager, it's hard, and anyone who's listening to this knows that. And I'm not like, no one's asking for charity for managers, but like it's hard. Artists are demanding and can be demanding, especially certain ones. And if you're 100% not into it, that's what I would say to every manager, young manager, when I was even today. It's like, if you're 100% not into it, don't do it.
Okay, so what does the future hold? What's your goal?
My goal is to continue to learn. And my goal is to continue to work with great artists. I know you typically ask people in this chair, what their advice is for younger people and everything. And my advice for younger people and older people is, if you don't learn something every day, then you're doing the wrong thing. I think no one has done this and knows everything. That's one of the more enjoyable things for me every day, is to be on a conference call or be in a meeting and just sit and talk to Deborah or sit and talk to anyone in our office and just learn. We work so closely with the Bowery guys who are on the other side of the office, who are some of my best friends outside of all of this. I've known them, forever. And to be able to sit in Glancy's office or Josh Moore's office or Beach's office and learn about new bands and watch them build and develop Webster Hall through the last, year or so on the inside and hear all the stories that came out of that. So interesting to me, because that's what I love. I love live, and I love the show, and I love everything that goes into the show. I have so much more access to information now that is so interesting to me that I can never stop consuming it, Even the ticket count email I get every day, I'll sit and just be like, oh, look at this in Seattle, look at this in Denver, look at this in the Carolinas. Like, find it so interesting that to know so much of what's going on in the world is valuable.
Who are some of the younger people coming up that are the future stars that you're seeing that are starting to emerge?
I don't know the word younger, because I'm really bad at how old people are, but I think, Jason Rogalewski in Detroit is incredible and puts together Mopop and really knows his market. Same with Mike Ducharme, who's now running Nashville, and a few others. Dom in LA, and, Johnny Schumann, who you just had on the podcast, who's on our team, is brilliant and so dialed in. I mean, Michelle Landry at Bowery in New York, Catherine at Bowery in New York, Xavier, who's up and coming, who works with Jim Glancy now, and he'll be a star. Andrew Clicchio works in touring, he'll be a star. There's just so many. There, Matt Robin, who's now in Florida, he'll be he worked for me at the artist organization and Mick, and now he's down there and learned to be a promoter. And
he's in JV's office?
Yeah, and he's doing a great job. So obviously there's so many AEG guys that are established. The younger generation, the guys that are coming up and the girls that are coming up, like some of them I haven't met, but they're incredible. Sophia and Brittany and Rick's team and touring, they're all so good and so dialed in.
There's hundreds of offices, thousands of employees. You couldn't possibly have interacted with everyone. So just to clarify,
the opposite. That. I try to, I think one of my favorite things is meeting people and networking and, getting to know new people. So I want to meet everybody. It's just in fucking meetings all day and on conference calls all day.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for taking the time a second time.
Well, I want to thank you for welcoming me back. Hell had no fury like a promoter scorned, so I appreciate you. I
thought it was
back.
Pretty cool about that. I thought it was pretty understanding about the whole thing.
I didn't
even give you any shit about it.
One of my rabbis is Sam Hunt, and he recorded the same time last year during Polestar Week or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember I called him and I said, he was one of the early people that I had told I was going to go to AEG. And I said, Sam, what am I going to do about this Promoter 101 thing? Like, it would be such a bad look for like a whole podcast come out about me talking about loyalty management of all things, when I'm leaving after a year and a half or 2 years. He's like, just call Dan. Tell him you want to get rid of it. I'm like, really? That seems so weird. So thank you for doing that. And thanks, Sam, for his guidance as always.
What's really funny is we recorded your interview maybe an hour before I interviewed Rapino. I was a little more uptight than I probably would have been.
I think this one's better. It feels more natural.
Yeah, this is definitely more of a relaxed setting for the two of us.
Yeah. Polestar is always just also so hectic.
It's such a go.
It's just,
All right, Promoter 101, Rich Schaefer. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Rich Schaefer is a bro, and we're honored to have him here on Promoter 101. Fucking finally, huh, Luke?
Finally, we got that interview out into the world. Appreciate you coming on the podcast.
It's about fucking time.
About fucking time!
Hi, I'm Leslie Olenek from Live Nation Touring, and I'm on Promoter 101.
That does it. Episode 163 of Promoter 101 in the bag. Thank you for listening, for tuning in, for loving this podcast. We can't thank you enough to all of our listeners out there. And we can't thank enough for our amazing guest this week from AEG Presents, Rich Schaefer, and from CAA, K-Marsh, Kristine Marshall. Thank you for coming on the podcast. If you like what you heard today, we want to hear about it. You didn't like what you heard, keep the thoughts to yourself. So send us some nice words at Steiny at promoter101.net. Tell us what's on your mind. Only if it's good things, though.
The Steiny and Luke Dancing Monkey Show will be back for you this coming Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard.
Join us then. We're going to have Kristine Marshall back for a full interview. One of the best booking agents out there in the biz, in my opinion. Looking forward to a full sit-down with her coming up on Monday.
Until then, these dancing monkeys are wishing you sold-out shows for the week to come. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Call your mother.
Hey there, Doug Edley from UTA. Love listening to Promoter 101 every week. Keep it up.
Ba-da-ba-ba.